Hi ladies, welcome. So here we have with us Rebbetzin quite an honor for us. And she has a treat for us today, and I've asked her just to share a little bit with us about what's happening here in Israel and outside of the country, what you do.
Just for 2 minutes, I like to bring Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. So I travel twice a year, and both America, South Africa, Europe, and the effect just of seeing somebody who's from here going there, who knows what's happening here, not just the way you hear it in the news, but the way you hear it from your inner life. It's something for people, and it creates a certain level of access between us and other people that's like hard to find otherwise. And the one thing I want everybody here to know, and you know this because we all are the same, the people in Chutz La'aretz, even people who are very far, there are people who are very far from thinking of themselves religiously as Jews, people who are very far from identifying with Israel. They're still very much with us. And when they hear the things that happen that aren't so good, they're very, very much with us. And I think it's important that we know that. And the gap between where people are intellectually and where they are emotionally is huge. And the reason for this is, of course, the nature of their educations, the nature of living in a liberal society, the vilification of Israel. But emotionally, mamash, they're one with us. And it's a wonderful thing. I have an internet community, and the members of the community are from here, but also not from here, from various places in the world, mostly the United States, but also Europe, also South America and South Africa. And the purpose of our getting together online is to learn together. So if this interests any of you, it's called Jewish Workshops. You could Google it in. And it's a community. You could ask questions online. I try to give people a sense of being not alone in their endeavors to grow. And it's a good thing. So that would be Jewish Workshops. And in addition to that, I work in Neve Yerushalayim, as many of you know. Neve Yerushalayim is the first, I have to tell you a bit of the history of Neve. I can't resist telling you, just really short. Rabbi Rebbetzin, its founder, was influenced by his Rebbe, Rav Elia Lopian, the famous Muzbal Musar. So when he was young, he was restless. So he became sort of the driver of the yeshiva. If somebody had to go somewhere, he would get to go behind the wheel. He enjoyed it. So he was at a wedding with Rav Elia, and basically his role after he drove him was to stand like this and wait till he's ready to leave. So Rav Elia went over to him and said, "See that young man?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "He's like you. He's from England. Go tell him he should come learn in yeshiva." So he said, "I can't just go over to a stranger and tell him what to do." So he said, "Why not?" So he said, he's thinking, he's interested, because we weren't introduced. So he said, if the guy was smoking, and ash fell on his trousers, and his trousers were starting to smoke, would you, say your pants are on fire, or would you wait for somebody to introduce you? So he got it. He said, you're right. This person doesn't know who he is and why he's here. At worst, he'll say, no, thank you. So I don't know what happened that evening, but they gave him the courage to do things that other people weren't doing. So when he got married, he moved to Yerushalayim. He was studying in Kfar Hasidim in the north, and he put an ad in the paper. And the ad said, "Do you have a limited background in Jewish learning? Want to learn more?" And a phone number. And much to his distress, only girls answered the ad. It was like a nightmare. But so that's how Neve started. So it was at that time, so this is over 40 years ago, it was at that time the only place where a woman could learn unless she had some background. So at that point it was like a kibbutz sort of. It was one apartment. The girls paid for everything themselves. The teachers taught on a voluntary basis. And that's how Neve was. It is presently the largest institution of women's learning in Judaic studies in the world. So this is how it goes. So I have the great privilege of being a teacher at Neve. I also teach in an Israeli midrasha called Nativ Bina, which is very interesting. The girls there come after work every day. Could you imagine this? They finish work at 4 or 5, sometimes even later, and they come and learn every evening. It's a remarkable thing. They're so motivated. They're so bright. So that's what I do. So now we know each other. I don't know you. I just know that you're here in Baka, but more than this I don't know. But it's nice to talk to people on a human level. To be human with people is nice. So we're going to be talking about today. Wait, I did something that I would be so angry if you did. I forgot to turn my phone off. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the inner dimensions of Purim. So everybody here knows the Purim story, so I'm not going to repeat anything of the story. What I am going to talk about are the characters in the story. So the story has quite a cast. So it begins the first member of the cast to be introduced in the Megillah, and remember the word Megillah is related to the phrase Megillah. It's meant to reveal. What is it meant to reveal? This is a Megillah in which Hashem's name isn't mentioned at all. It's meant to reveal Hashem's presence when you can't call Him by name, when you could easily attribute whatever is happening to other causes. So the first person to appear in the Megillah is Ahasuerus. So the first thing, and this is something I just learned this year, that was not his real name. His real name, he had a Persian name, Ahasuerus or something like this, to which he's referred to as such in the Gemara. But the Jews called him Ahasuerus. That was the name they called him. Why would they call him a different name than his actual name, although it does sound similar? So the remez is Achai v'Rosh. He acts like my brother, my brother, but Rosh, he wants to impoverish us. So what they saw, they picked up on him, was that his enormous capacity for self-aggrandizement was so insatiable, that as long as somebody else has, his feeling is he doesn't. Do we know people like this? So this was Ahasuerus. The Vilna Gaon explains that this trait of Ahasuerus is there in the Megillah for us to study, not just to know what happened in Persia thousands of years ago, but to know that this trait exists within us and in the world. So this trait, which he says is the core of all of the entire jungle that lives within us, that trait is limitless desire. So some of you may know, in Eastern tradition, the villain is desire. Because once you feel this empty space, the need to fill it sometimes could go in any possible direction. So Ahasuerus was the one with the empty space that couldn't be filled. So it begins by Hibi me Ahasuerus, tells us how great his kingdom was. Mehodu v'ad Kush, 127 countries. So some of you may be familiar. In the Midrash it says that the 127 countries that he rules paralleled, what other 127 do you know? Sarah's life. And that, I remember the first time I read that, they said, so, yes, this is 127 and that's 127. Okay. So I have to talk to you a bit about Sarah as a digression to understand Ahasuerus. Sarah was a Gilgul of Chava. It says this in Shar HaGilgulim of the Arizal. Esther was a Gilgul of Sarah. What do all three of them have in common? They are put in the world. For what purpose? Concerning Chava, we have a direct statement in the text. She was put in the world what? For what? To be an Ezer Kenegdo. To be one who's helpful and parallel. Now, helpful and parallel is a hard concept because when you say someone is a helper, you usually picture that as inferior. So it's not parallel if it's inferior. So I want to give you a whole other kind of vision of helper. And again, this is going to go back to Ahasuerus. I'm not going to get too distracted. How many of you have ever had the great pleasure of having to go to an expensive medical specialist? What a pleasure. Okay. So, you get up and you see something that you don't want to see on your body. You ask around. You make the call. Okay, does the doctor answer the phone? No. Who answers the phone? You're lucky if you get the secretary. The secretary is a human being. Okay, what do you get? If you wish to make an appointment with Dr. Halberstam, please press 1. If you're calling concerning billing or insurance, please... Okay, got the picture. You press 1. Do you get a human being? 0. No. You're right, you don't... Okay. The next available appointment is at Tuesday, 4:42.3 seconds. If you wish the appointment, press 1. If not, and you get the dreaded, the dreaded one? Hold for other options. Translate that. You have 120 years to live, you're going to waste 119. Okay, whatever. When you get to the doctor's office, is the doctor standing with a cup of tea saying, you must be so distressed? No. Ring and answer. You get old, National Geographic, Switzerland, 1952, whatever. How long are you going to spend with this doctor? How long is the appointment? Are any of you in medicine? 15 minutes is long, 5 minutes is short, it's somewhere between, right? Is it a pleasant 15 minutes? No. But who says thank you? You or the doctor? You do. And who pays? You do. But who's the helper and who's the one being helped? You're the one being helped, and the doctor is the helper, right? So this is also not parallel. The goal is to be a helpmate who's parallel, not the maid, not the medical specialist, parallel. To help do what? You could only help when there's a goal. Imagine if somebody would just stop you and say, could you help me a minute? You're nice. You say yes. And you say, what should I do? And they say, I don't know. This isn't helpful. Okay, so she was supposed to help them create human potential's fulfillment, to bring light into a dark place. She failed. Okay, Sarah succeeded to a large degree. Esther was supposed to succeed still further. But I want to tell you something about spiritual success, and this is, if you forget everything else from the class, remember this. There's no success without challenge. There's never success without challenge. So Ahasuerus was placed in the picture for the sake of being a challenge. So the Ahasuerus within us, the insatiable inner place that's never full, is there to challenge us. It has a purpose. So let's go back to the actual person, Ahasuerus. So he began his career as a Persian soldier. He succeeded. Okay, let's leave him here a minute. The Jews were in Israel, and after many warnings from the prophets, the temple, they were expelled, the temple was destroyed, terrible tragedy. This took them all to Babylon. Okay, the Jews are now in Babylon. It took three different expulsions to get them there in Babylon. Okay, there are two great empires now in the world, the Persian Empire and the Babylonian Empire. The Persian Empire it became an empire through creating a unified front with the Medes, so now it's Persian Medes against the Babylonians. The Babylonian king who destroyed the temple and expelled the Jews was Nebuchadnezzar. He died. His son, this is a good name if you're going to be an awful person, was called Evil Merodach. Evil you could spell like evil. Okay, Evil Merodach comes. He only reigned a short time. He died. His son-in-law, Belshazzar, became king. Belshazzar is having a party, and they're suddenly writing on the wall, says, count, weigh doesn't know what this is talking about. He calls Daniel, who was one of the descendants of King David, who was expelled with the first expulsion of the Jews. He tells him, you're finished. Your deeds have been weighed. He's talking, and the Persians burst through, and everyone is killed, except one child who hid under a table, Vashti. Okay, the Persians who broke in, amongst them, okay, is Ahasuerus. So now, Ahasuerus, who's leading the Persians, I'm going to spare you the whole, Darius the First, I'm going to spare you the Persian history of this. He has a political need for Vashti, because that gives him a legitimacy in the rule of Babylonia as well, and they're uniting. So that here's Ahasuerus. He has 127 countries. In the merit of Sarah, whose descendant needs to be challenged by someone like Ahasuerus, so he's given power, so that power will be a challenge for women and men as well. Okay? He's 3 years into his rule. He's making a party. What's the party about? According to his calculations, the 70 years that Yirmiyahu told the Jews would be the time of redemption had passed. And no Mashiach came. And therefore what? Everything's going to stay the way it is, and all of their belief was foolishness. And he was celebrating that, because the idea of the Jews believing in their own future was a threat to him emotionally, not politically. So he has this huge party. And at this party, which is basically celebrating the fact that his empire and his dream has replaced any spiritual vision that the Jews had. So it was to his interest to turn Judaism into a museum piece. So at this unbelievably lavish party, he's having service done by the vessels from the Beis HaMikdash. He himself put on the garments of the Kohen Gadol, and the Jews went to see it. And there was only one who protested, who was Mordecai. And the issue was not kashrut. It says explicitly in the Megillah, every person was served what they wanted. Somebody could have asked for badat, chol of Yisrael, whatever, they could ask for whatever they want and they'd get it. What was Mordecai's problem with this? So I want to take you to an imaginary scenario. Okay, suppose, as we're talking here, I'm sure you know this, under Har HaBayis there's continual archaeological stuff going on, right? And they dig at night. So suppose, think of various movies you saw in your sinful youth. You're there to dig, and suddenly someone says, hey, there's something big. Okay, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Okay, so the archaeologist says, what could this be? They unearth it. It's the Holy Ark. Okay, what would happen next? If God forbid they'd find it, what would happen next? Be there. What would happen next? A phone call to who? Who's the chief archaeologist going to call? He's going to call the security authorities. He's going to call his superior in Hebrew University. Okay? What's going to happen to the Holy Ark? What's going to be? We'll have to find a place for it, right? You've all seen the Dead Sea Scrolls? Could you picture the shrine of the Holy Ark? You could see this. You pay up 45 shekels. Okay? Outside there's like a snack area. Okay, inside huge room, like 3 times the size of this. The Holy Ark into the middle, in glass, like special temperature controlled whatever. Big purple carpet that sort of revolves around it. In the background you could hear Yoram Ga'on Adon Olam, yeah? And the deep voice here, because you get earphones for 45 shekels, yeah? Earphones. The Aron Barit. Okay, how many of you would go to see it? Be honest. Okay, could you picture yourself going there with your friend Debbie, and asking somebody, hey, could you get both of us? Or doing a selfie. I mean, okay, so that's because we are insensitive. We're opaque, and this is me too. I'm not pretending I'm not. This is the holy ark that the Kohen Gadol could only view once a year after a full week of preparation with great trepidation. When you would invoke Hashem's name, people would fall to the floor in awe. And now you're taking a selfie? You're like, okay, so we're opaque, we're callous. This is what Mordecai saw when he forbade people to go to Ahasuerus' party. So now we have Ahasuerus. Let's go on to the next character. The next character is Vashti. So Vashti, who of course is the great-granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar, who should have had the Babylonian crown, she has her own party going on. She didn't have a separate party because they were so tzniusly inclined. It would be so inappropriate to have a mixed party. Okay. She is the queen, and she wants to have her party. Okay, the word Vashti, its root, Maharal explains the drushes on this, comes from the word shtayim. Shtayim means two. To what? So he explains that the same way there's a certain form of evil that Ahasuerus epitomized, the bottomless pit, there's another form of evil. That form of evil is what we call dualism. So let me explain dualism to you. There's, of course, two kinds of dualism. Okay, so one kind of dualism is everything good should be celebrated and somehow it's like a gift from God, and everything bad is like terrible and we should kill them all. In other words, they don't see God as the author of evil and good. They don't understand unity. So this vision of reality would be true of virtually every other religion's vision of reality other than Islam, which is truly monotheistic. The other religions are not. So in Christianity you have Christ and the Antichrist. In Eastern religion you have the Hindu Trinity, which includes the force of evil. Okay, clear? They don't get unity. So what's the result of this? Remember, Vashti, Shtayim. You have your spiritual life, and then you have your real life. Do we know people like this? Do we or not? We do. So there are people who at home are one thing, but if they're dealing with people who they don't know, it's a whole other story. There are people who the other way. They're nice with other people. When they get into home, they turn into monsters. People can be dualistic because they don't believe God is with them at every moment. Ahasuerus epitomized a masculine form of evil. Vashti, a feminine form. What's feminine dualism? On one hand, there's the desire to be a nurturer, a builder, and on the other hand, self-empowerment and no room for anyone else. So this was Vashti. So Vashti, who epitomizes this form of evil, which leads to disloyalty and betrayals and all sorts of things, why didn't she go out when Ahasuerus summoned her to come out wearing just the crown and nothing else? So you're familiar with the Midrashim. One Midrash says that she developed tzaras. You know this, right? The other Midrash says what? Grew a tail. Okay, so Maharal says don't take this literally. His view on Midrashim in general is if a Midrash doesn't make sense literally, then understand its inner dimension. Don't settle on only the outer dimension. Let's look at the tail first. Okay, so here you are, Vashti the dualist. Ahasuerus says, come. She was beautiful. Okay, come wearing nothing. One part of her says, yes, I want to come wearing nothing. I want to have no body shame. I want to show everyone my beauty. Then she looked in the mirror, and you know what she saw in her mind's eye? An animal. A human being's beauty is not their body alone. There's something animalistic. There's something base about coming out so somebody could see your body and say, what a body. She got it finally. So I want to give you the story of the Gemara. During the time of the Roman oppression, one of the daughters of a sage was captured, and she was taken to the slave market. And in those days, women wore 7 garments. I'm not sure exactly what they were, but there were 7 different garments. So she's standing there wearing her 7 garments, and the slave master is offering her for sale. And a buyer says, wait a minute, I'm not going to buy a cat in a bag. What does she look like? Let's see. So they took off 1 garment. Then he said, I can't know, come on. They took off the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. When they were about to take off the final garment, she literally died of shame. Could you picture this? So now let's transfer this image to today's world, where people will do this without any pressure from the outside at all. So this is dualism. On one hand, there's something in everyone that says, I'm a human. And on the other hand, there's something that's comfortable with being an animal. So she finally saw it. She said, I'm not going out. You're not going to objectify me. I'm not going out. View number 1. View number 2. She came down with saras. So saras is a skin ailment. It's not leprosy. Leprosy is contagious. Saras not contagious. Saras comes in very specific colorations that are narrated in the Chumash and expounded upon in the Talmud that are extremely specific. But it is a skin ailment that in some ways is similar in this, that the skin and the body parts under the skin die. So why did people get saras, and why don't people get saras now? So saras was a malady that Hashem afflicted people with to bring them to an awareness of what they had become. It was to create awareness. Awareness of what? The sin that brought about saras, as you know, was what? Lashon hara. So Lashon hara by definition is something true and negative about another person. If it's not true, it's not called Lashon hara. It's called v'chilus. It's a sin, but it's a different sin. If it's really untrue, it's called moti shemra. So what's so bad about saying something true and negative? What's the problem? Let's say you have a neighbor who, something true and negative, who's on the verge of divorce. And you hear the stuff that goes on between the husband and the wife, because this is Israel. Okay? And, and people say, is it true that the Cohens are breaking up? And there's a part that says, yeah, it is. And the person says, what's the story? They look like the perfect couple. And then they press the button. Okay, you can see this? Now you could think to yourself, look, if they didn't, if they don't want people to talk about them, they should have gotten their act together. That's what you could think, erroneously. So if he really is stingy, why shouldn't people talk about it? If he doesn't want people to stay stingy, let him be not stingy. Let's say she has a little issue emotionally that she has histrionics every night. She really should see a therapist. So if she's not taking care of herself mentally, why shouldn't people know? This is how people think when they speak Lashon hara. Isn't that true? So Lashon hara is a corruption of our love of truth. It's a corrupted form of telling the truth. And this is why we're drawn so much, all of us, me too, we're drawn to investigative journalism. You're familiar with that? What really happened? Okay, whatever. And it gets petty, like Hillary's email account, Emet. Okay, who cares? Okay. But it's because people really enjoy this. They enjoy being judge and jury. So what's the problem with Lashon hara? So the very famous Kabbalist, the Ramak, wrote a sefer called Reishis Chachma that some of you may have heard of. There's a long chapter on Lashon hara, but he doesn't call it Lashon hara. He calls it truth. and falsehood. And his thesis is all Lashon Hara is a lie. How so? How could it be true and be a lie at the same time? When you choose to look at only one aspect of a person and present it as though that's the person, that's a lie. You understand this? You say, who is this one? You say, oh, he's the one whose wife divorced him because he's so stingy. That's a lie. He's a person. He's a person. You're choosing to have your eye cast on one aspect, on the negative aspect, and present it as though it's the whole. So that's called, are you ready? Superficiality. That's what that's called. You're looking at the outside. You're unwilling to see the inside. What I find ironic is that people who like Lashon Hara often will say, I'm not naive. You want me to judge people favorably? That's for 8-year-olds. I'm a sophisticated person. I know the truth. No, you don't know the truth. You know the negative part that you're focusing on. That's not the truth. You're superficial. You're unwilling to ask questions. You're unwilling to broaden your vision. So she, Vashti, epitomized that. She saw the world superficially. She saw the outside and never saw the inside, because if you see the inside, you're a different kind of person. So because of this, when she looked in the mirror, she not only saw the tail, but she saw the corruption of the outside, and she wouldn't go out. So Ahasuerus had her killed. Why? Why not you say, Vashti has a migraine, it doesn't look like, the entertainment. Okay, why did he have her killed? So I want to tell you something about Ahasuerus' midah. The midah of having insatiable desire, that empty space, is that you want other people to fill it. And if they start filling it, it still stays empty. So you want more and more and more. And if they won't deliver, you feel rage against them. And this is why he had her killed. Okay, clear? Okay, so she's dead. Now we have the first good character introduced. So we have 2 bad guys. We're going to have another one, Haman. Now we're going to introduce the first of the 2 good guys in this story, Mordecai. So Mordecai also had history. Mordecai may have already attained a certain level of prophecy while still in Israel. When the royal family was expelled, even though he was not a member of the royal family, he was the head of the Sanhedrin, he was expelled with them. He got back to Israel. He got back. We don't know exactly how, but he got back. When the middle class was expelled, he was expelled with them, and he got back. And only when the poor were expelled, he was expelled with them, he couldn't get back. So he was in Babylonia, which then became Persia, because the Persians conquered Babylon, and now it's part of the Persian Empire, along with the other Jews. And there was something that haunted him. The very beginning of the Babylonian conquest, when Nebuchadnezzar was still king, Nebuchadnezzar decreed that when he walks in public, people have to bow before him. He wore a talisman that translated him into being a god. Kings being gods was once a very popular thing. Okay. In fact, at the end of World War II, I don't know if you're aware of this, the Japanese emperor had proclaimed himself God. He had to get on the radio and say, I am not a god, which, whatever. Okay. It was a memorable radio broadcast. Okay. Oh, you're not. Oh, silly. Okay, whatever. Okay. Shame. Okay, but in any case, so in halacha you can't bow before him, but everybody did. Everybody did. Only 4 people didn't. 3 brothers who you're familiar with: Mishael, Hananiah, and Azariah, and Daniel. Everybody else bowed. Nebuchadnezzar knew that this is chapter 1. That something like this will not go unpunished. Not because God hates us and has an ego issue, but because He will not let us self-destruct. You understand this? When we fall too far, wherever He has to take us to come back, He'll bring us back. He's not going to let us disappear. So Mordecai knew this, and it was in the back of his mind. On his way back to Bavel, on the way back to Bavel, he happened to meet an interesting person who was a soldier in the Persian army who had somehow lost track of his battalion. He was also on the way back to Babylon, which was now Persia. Haman. Mordecai met Haman in the desert. Mordecai had food, Haman didn't. Haman pleaded with him for food and water. What should Mordecai have done? We're too Jewish to know the answer. He should have said no. He should have said no. Because Haman was an Amalekite. And the Amalekites are out to destroy us. So there's a halacha which you're familiar with. Let's say you wake up in the middle of the night because you hear a burglar in your corridor. What should you do? If you have any sense, what should you do? A burglar just entered your home. What should you do? Put the blanket over your head and act like you're sleeping. That's what you should. Okay, but let's say you're not the type. So you get out of bed, you get your flashlight, you go, who's there? Now what do you think he's going to say? Me, the burglar? What do you think he's going to say? You know? So the premise in halakha is that the burglar, if he's discovered, is likely to kill you. Okay? And therefore you're supposed to what? Kill him. Okay, so the idea is if somebody's coming to kill you, you rise and kill him. Why? Because someone is going to be dead. And better it should be the burglar than his victim. Okay, clear? Same way, you're walking in the street, someone with a bloody knife, and someone's running in front of him screaming, no, no. Okay, so what do? You take out your handy Uzi machine gun that you carry with you because of the matzah, okay, and you blow them away. Now let's say it was a movie set. Oh no! Okay, I knew he was familiar. Okay, and there went whatever. There went Bo Derek. Okay, so you're still right in halacha. Do you realize that? Because you're supposed to defend the victim against the perpetrator, and if you made a mistake, it was an honest mistake. Because the victim is not the one who should be left dead. This is clear? So what does this have to do with anything? Mordecai should have killed Haman, but he didn't, because he's one of us, and we find it difficult to do this. Which is one of our...
Did Mordecai know at the time that Haman was from Amalek?
Yes, you're going to see how we know this. He knew it. It was... we failed. This is one of our failures as a people. Okay, he knew he was an Amalekite. He was not going to give him food. Haman pleaded and begged, and I'll do anything. I'll take all of my powers and I'll dedicate them to the Jewish people. The whole thing. And Mordecai agreed on condition that he would actually keep his word. So he didn't have a paper and pen there. The Midrash says this. He required Haman to write on the only thing he had that one could write upon, which was the sole of a sandal. I, Haman ben Hamdatah ha'agagi, sell myself as a slave to Mordecai, etc., etc. Okay, clear? Now, that's Mordecai. Mordecai was a descendant of Binyamin. Now this is relevant. Why? Of all of the tribes, when Yaakov was escaping from Laban's house, he encountered Esav. Everyone bowed except Binyamin, who was not yet born. So he inherited a trait. That trait was the ability to not bow. So Hashem put him in the right place and the right time. Mordecai is now in the picture. Why is he in the picture? What does Mordecai have to do with anything? Because Esther's in the picture. So our other good guy is now introduced. So her real name was Hadassah, but she was called Esther. Her Jewish name is Hadassah, but she's going to be called Esther throughout. She was an orphan as long as she could remember anything. At birth, her father died when her mother was pregnant, and her mother died at her birth. Mordecai, who was her uncle, adopted her. When Mordecai's wife died, he married her. So he was everything to her. He was her father figure. He was her husband. He was her Rebbe. He was everything. Okay, clear? Now, why was she called Hadassah? Now, personally, I wouldn't give any child a plant name. I don't see the point of naming a human after a plant. It seems to be very silly, like it's backward evolution, whatever. But if I was going to name someone for a plant, which I would not do, it would be like at least some marvelous, incredible plant, you know? But Hadassah? And this was before the hospital, and this was, like, why, why name somebody Hadassah? You know what I mean? It's like naming someone Greenleaf, okay? So I want to tell you why. This is an important thing, and Maharal talks about this a lot, at length. Because in those days, are you ready? Humility and modesty were virtues. Got it? We are so far from this. Humility and modesty were virtues. Naming a child after a plant that's modest, that's inconspicuous, was viewed as something beautiful and holy and exactly who you want the child to be. So another thing that you're familiar with from the Midrash, it says, Esther Yeravroka Kaita, Esther was green. Don't understand this literally. It isn't like she's walking by and says, is that a big cucumber? No, that's Esther. Shh, it's not nice. No. What does it mean? So Maharal explains, in the color spectrum, you remember learning the color spectrum? Green's the middle. It's the middle between the hot colors and the cold colors. So what does that mean? If a person is genuinely humble and genuinely modest, they could relate to anyone. They could relate to someone with a temperament that's in this direction or a temperament in that direction. Why? Because there's no sense of competition and there's no sense of alienation. Everyone is like me. We're both people. You have something that's interesting. You have something I could learn from. This was Esther. So Mordecai and Esther are now in the picture. Why? Because Haman, who we still have to talk about, influenced Ahasuerus to have the ghastly beauty contest that led to Esther's becoming queen. So Haman, let's talk a little bit more about him. He's an Amalekite. He's referred to as Haman HaAgagi. Do any of you know who Agag was? Agag was the king that Shaul didn't kill. So, you understand this? Had Shaul had the courage to kill Agag, there would be no Haman. Mordecai, who was he? His yichus is described. Ben Yair, the one who was enlightened. Ben Shimei, the one who knew how to hear. Ben Kish. What's Kish? Okay, Kish means to knock, like to knock on the door like this. So the Midrash says, Kish is one of the names of Shaul. And we have this in Tehillim. One of the Tehillim said, this is a Tehillim composed by Dovid when he was running away from Kish. Who is Kish? Kish is Shaul. Why was he called Kish? Because Shaul was so complex. He was a great tzaddik. He could knock on the doors of heaven and be answered. His sins didn't block him. It was only later in his life, the 2 years when Dovid was being pursued by him, which was a result of his mental ill health after he lost the kingdom, that a lot was gone. He said he wasn't himself any longer. He was a great tzaddik. So you have the descendant of Shaul facing off with the descendant of Agag. It's quite something. So Haman wants Ahasuerus to look for another queen. Why? He wanted to ingratiate himself. He wanted power. He wanted to be the one who's the power behind the throne, the one who brought in the queen, the one who Ahasuerus owes everything to. Now Ahasuerus is, of course, insatiable. So when they order all of the beautiful young virgins to come, no one was able to make him feel what? I'm okay. I'm beloved. It didn't work. Okay, now, do you think the women wanted to come or didn't want to come? How many of you think that they wanted to come? How many of you think they didn't want to come?
Maybe depending on whether or not they needed to be taken out of bad situations or,
Okay. The state was being queen of the Persian Empire. They wanted to come. How many of you have seen the Miss America pageant? Okay. And the rest of you aren't admitting. Okay. Okay, what?
If they would not become queen, they would be, if they were married again, they were his property.
They were his property, but they were still coming, but the problem was, didn't work. He wasn't happy with anyone.
But they still don't want to do it, and they knew they wouldn't be fixed, that they would never be able to.
So, what we see even with Esther when she was queen, he didn't have, how should I phrase this? He didn't keep them prisoner. They had lives, they had money, they had fame. Okay, they wanted to come, but it didn't work. So the decree changed. First it was all beautiful virgins. Then it was all beautiful women. Then it was even married women. Then it was any man who's discovered to be hiding a woman from the examiners who determine whether a specific woman is beautiful enough to meet Ahasuerus. Any man who's caught doing this, what do you think the end of the sentence will be? Will die. So obviously Mordecai had been hiding Esther. When the decree that any man caught hiding a woman will die came forth, Esther got dressed in her clothes, her regular modest clothes, and went out in the shuk so she should be picked up because she didn't want to be discovered by Mordecai. Did she know what would happen? No. In fact, the last thing in her mind was that she would be the one chosen. Why would she think that she won't be chosen? Why was she secure in this?
She was dressed modestly.
She was dressed modestly. She didn't want it. And she wasn't that young. Okay? So, immediately upon her being taken to the palace, something very interesting happens. We get introduced to still another character, Haggai. Who's Haggai? Haggai is the eunuch who was in charge of the harem. Okay, do we all know invisible people? Do you know what I mean when I say invisible people? What's an invisible person?
like a clean person in a building.
The cleaner in a building, the person who hands the waiter in the nice hotel the tray to bring. Okay, we know a lot of invisible people. How do people treat invisible people? Invisibly. Esther couldn't treat anybody invisibly because she was what? Esther. She was Hadassah. She was Yerakrokaitaita. So she found favor in Haggai's eyes because she treated Haggai like what?
Human.
A human being. So in his misguided sense of goodness, he decided to bring her to the throne room. She'll be first. She'll be best. And he meant well. Okay, clear? So there she is. What does she want to wear? Her Mea Sharm special. Okay. The navy blue suit with the white collar. Have you seen it? Okay. She had to wear what he gave her. He wanted to give her cosmetics. He wanted to give her everything. What did she want? Nothing. Okay. Why did Ahasuerus kick her? What does it say in the text? What? She's not chen v'chesed, not just chen, also chesed. She made him feel like a person. She made him feel favored. She made him feel liked. And he wanted her. And Haman was very happy with his selection because he saw her kindness, her goodness as weakness. Okay. He was very pleased with this. In the meantime, Mordecai told her something very strange. He said, don't tell anybody who you really are. Why not? So there are a number of reasons. One is, Mordecai understood Haman and Ahasuerus. And he realized that if she was going to say, I'm Jewish, then the agenda is to make her what? Not Jewish. Okay? Either not Jewish or dead. It's not worth it for her. And he also realized, again, there was a bill that had to be paid. And he felt it was better to have someone in the palace who was not known as a Jew. Now, when did this all take place? The party took place in the 3rd year of Ahasuerus' rule. The beauty contest was at the party. This took place, it says in the text, in the 7th year. So that means that this ridiculous beauty contest was going on for what? 4 years. Could you imagine this? How many women were involved? Okay, and she's now the queen. Okay, so her relationship to her position was, it says again, twice it says this in the Megillah, the words, V'tilakach Esther, she was taken. She never went willingly. Every single time she had to face him, she had to be literally taken. Esther karkat olam haita. She was like the ground. She had no self when she was with him. When they had their physical relationship, she wasn't there. She would take herself away. And it was okay with him. What does that say about him? In the meantime, Mordecai again is waiting to see what will happen. He knows something is going to happen. He's there every day. You have the whole big Tanteris story, which I'm not going to take you through. Then you have Haman's rise to power. That's in the 12th year. So that means Esther was in the palace how many years? 5. Haman comes to power. Okay, and like Nebuchadnezzar, he wants people to bow before him. So here you end up with something very strange. You've seen these pictures of the Arabs in Mecca with like tens of thousands of people bowing to the Kaaba. You've seen that? How would it look if there would be one person standing up? Okay, so there's Mordecai. Everybody is bowing. And he's standing in the middle of the crowd with the sandal up. Okay. There's Mordecai. Okay. So the question could be asked, was he right to do this? Make me a case that he was wrong. So I want to share something with you that happened to me in my life. Thank God the perpetrator in the story was not Jewish. Okay, so years and years ago, we had unusual friends. You live in Baka, you understand unusual friends. I can't tell the story in my stuff without to understand. How did you know these people? Okay, whatever. Okay, so we had unusual friends. So one of our unusual friends had a friend from way back, from his college days, which were just 4 days ago. Okay, a non-Jewish guy who was a devout Christian who was in the Holy Land on his own personal pilgrimage. A guy from Australia. He went up to Har HaBayit. He had in his mind, he thought that by burning down the mosque, he would bring about the second coming. Okay, this is what he thought. So he started a fire on Har HaBayit. He was arrested. Thank God he wasn't Jewish, right? You could see this. I mean, there was rioting anyway. But I only found out later that happened during the rioting. So the Arabs are rioting. As is their minhag, and so the army is out, and there's smoke coming off Har HaBayit. So one of my students in Nivea was living in the old city then. She's married to a boy from Tziporah. They rented a little apartment. She sees like smoke from Har HaBayit, like terrible commotion in the street. And in the meantime, the soldiers told the guys in Tziporah, you remember where it used to be? So it used to be like right when you go up the stairs. Is it better take the Sifrei Torah out of the yeshiva, put it in a private house, who knows what's going to happen? So she looks out in the window, she sees guys from Tziporah with Sifrei Torah in their arms, smoke on Har HaBayit. Her conclusion is, of course, what? Mashiach came. So I said, so what did you do? So she said, I put on makeup. Her makeup, my Shabbat Shulchan, I wasn't going to go down like that. Okay. But in any case, so the reason I'm telling you this story is that it's not so clear that what Mordecai did was a good idea. You're talking about not bowing to the most important man in the Persian Empire. There were no Jews who lived outside the Persian Empire. That means this is the only time in our history where we really were in danger of extinction. It seems like a bad idea. In fact, the other members of the Sanhedrin opposed him severely. And there was no requirement that he be out and about. He could have just what? Stayed home. Could you imagine how... Why don't you just stay home? You want a chavrusa? Choose a chavrusa. You want to just stay home. Don't endanger yourself and the entire Jewish people. Why did he do this? It's not so clear in Halacha he was allowed to, by the way. If he wasn't Mordecai, he would have been wrong. What did he see that they didn't see? He saw that they were gone unless somebody protested. If there was no one who protested, they were gone. If he wasn't a Navi, that would be extremely irresponsible. Another name of Mordecai is Malachi. Okay, clear? Tov. So he's there, and everybody's worst dreams are fulfilled. Haman is angry. He's blaming it on the entire Jewish people. Terrible decrees. If Mordecai was running for prime minister, he would not have won. Okay, clear? Okay, terrible, terrible things are happening. Okay, so now, let's go all the way to the end of the Megillah. We all know the story. We don't have to go to the king and and the feast and Esther. Okay, let's go to the very end. So what we see is that because there was tikkun, and the tikkun took place in many ways. There was Mordecai with his sandal. There was Esther with a 3-day fast. There were the people who fasted along with her. And because they fasted along with her, what happened? They finally had kapara, not just for now, but for the party, for bowing to Nebuchadnezzar. The damage was healed. So what you have here is that every single difficulty brought about healing. And there's more. Esther's story isn't over at that meal. So Mordecai becomes an important man in the kingdom. Haman is destroyed along with his family. Okay, but what happened to Esther? She's still queen. She's still stuck with who? Ahasuerus. And she had his child. And their child, Daryavish II. So just, you have to know a little bit of Persian lineage. Go back a bit. Persian lineage. Okay. So there's Daryavish I, who was a friend of the Jews and wanted to let them build the Beit HaMikdash. He was succeeded by another friend of the Jew. Ahasuerus stopped it, and now his son, Daryavish II, who's Esther's son, is this, what is this child? He's Jewish, right? But he chose to identify himself as a Persian. Could you imagine how heartbreaking that was for Esther? She has one child. She never had a child with Mordecai. She has one child. And he identifies himself as a non-Jew. But what did he do? He brought about the building of Bayit Sheni. He brought about the building of Bayit Sheni. So through all of the challenges and suffering and inexplicable pain, we got to a point of not only tshuva and tikkun, but we end up in a higher place than we were before. How so? It says that the Bayit Sheni was greater than Bayit Rishon. So what? It was missing everything that's important. The aura, the presence of the Shekhinah, the miracles. It endured longer, 10 years longer. Bayit Rishon was 410 years, Bayit Sheni was 420 years. But there's another dimension of greatness. Bayit Rishon was Hashem revealing His glory to us. Bayit Sheni was our seeking Him. So the Gemara said in that sense, Bayit Sheni was greater than Bayit Rishon. For the Kohen Gadol to enter the Kodesh Kedoshim during the time of Bayit Sheni, and what's there? Nothing. And to realize that we don't have the light of the aura. We don't have anything, but we still have to pour out ourselves before Hashem and He'll answer us. That's greater than doing the same thing in the presence of the Aron. You understand this? So this all came about through challenge after challenge after challenge. So now you will understand something that many of you are familiar with. It says that every place it says Hamelech in the Megillah, it's a reference to Hashem. Where it says Melech Ahasuerus, it's a reference to Ahasuerus. So when you'll hear the Megillah soon, you'll go through it. You'll see this is Hamelech. Hamelech wants Vashti to be killed. Yes. Every time it says Hamelech, as unreasonable as it sounds, it was really Hashem. Because Hashem, using methods of His own, that are hidden from our own eyes, is bringing everything towards Tikkun. Whether we could see it at the time or not. Because the only key to Tikkun is challenge. So when He brings about challenges, He's bringing forth the goodness in us. And when He's revealing Himself, He's doing the same. And in that sense, He's Melech Ne'elam, the King who's concealed from us. So the Megillah ends with the mitzvot of Purim. So what are the mitzvot of Purim about? So let's go through them very quickly. So first you have Megillah reading. So as we said at the beginning, Megillah is the word Megaleh. What should you be doing when you hear the Megillah? It's hard. It's a long Megillah, because it's a whole long Megillah, especially in the morning when you hear it the second time. Be the Purim characters. You just learned about them. Be Esther. Follow your way through it. Be the Megillah. It's not just to hear, it's to reveal this in yourself. It's the first mitzvah. What's the next mitzvah? After you hear Megillah? What? Mishloach Manot. Now a question you could have with Mishloach Manot is, it's not doctor to the poor that you give Mishloach Manot, and not doctor to the lonely. It's nice to give it to lonely people, but it's not a halachic requirement. It's oftentimes we end up giving food to people who don't need food. Are you familiar with this? Here it is, a month before Pesach, another little challah for the freezer. How nice. Okay, yeah. How special. Okay, yeah. How many of you get re-gifted on Purim? You get re-gifted? You know, when you get your own stuff back? Okay. So, in any case, what's this about? So what this is about is this, that the merit of Hashem being that involved with us is because of who we are collectively. It doesn't say, Ben ata la'Hashem Elokech, it says, Banim atem la'Hashem Elokechem. So this is unity for the sake of unity. This is the voice of Esther who said, Lech knos et kol ha'Yehudim, gather all the Jews. Not just the tzaddikim, not just the nice guys. So we have to be able to say, I extend myself to everyone. What's the next mitzvah? We have 2. There are 4. Matanas Levyanim. So Matanas Levyanim has to do with raising everyone, at least for one day, to feeling the achdus, to not feeling separate and different and less. Last mitzvah, which I'm surprised with women that this is the last mitzvah. What's the last mitzvah? The Suda. So the Suda is meant to be a counter to Ahasuerus' Suda. So Ahasuerus' Suda was celebrating what? Defeat, creating externality. The Suda that we have is meant to celebrate our eternal victory and our internality. So this is what I'm going to end with. So if you have time, if you have questions, the time is now. And I'm also selling Purim CDs for 10 shekels in the back. Okay, yeah?
Did Mordecai divorce Esther so that it would be...
So there's machloket in the Gemara about this. After Ahasuerus had taken Esther, did Mordecai divorce Esther to prevent it from being adultery? So it's not so clear because Ahasuerus never married Esther. Marriage by halakhic definition is contractual. That means that the bride has to agree to marriage. Okay, so like if some girl is walking down, what's the main street here in Baka? What's the big street that people go on? Derech Havron. Someone's like walking down Derech Havron past all the coffee shops, and like a piece of paper flies out, and when she catches it, It happens to be a ketubah. He can't just say, Mazel Tov! No, it has to be consensual. So Esther was never married him consensually. So because of this, it's not considering a marriage besides the fact that he's a non-Jew. So there's machloket in the Gemara whether it would make her situation better or not if Mordecai was to divorce her.
But she did have a child by him.
She had a child with him, but I don't want to shock you. You ready? Some people have children when they're not married. Okay. She's married to Mordecai. She's married. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. More questions? In other words, if a rape victim has a child, the child isn't necessarily mamzer. Yeah.
Is it not God Ahasuerus that Haman got involved with God?
Oh.
How do you let everyone go down to him? Like, towards the end, if you read them, it's hard to see, like, when we started getting paranoid that Haman was actually killing some people.
Right.
You let him prance around and everyone
Because he saw Haman as a servant.
Even though Haman thought he wanted something.
Right. Haman and Ahasuerus were not on the same page.
You were talking about tikkun. Is it also considered the tikkun of King Shaul?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And in fact, the ultimate tikkun of King Shaul, we're told that descendants of Shaul will eradicate Amalek in the time of Mashiach. That there'll be people out where descendants of Shaul will do this. Okay. Have a good Purim.